Hello everyone, welcome to Voting Trend for August 29th, and holy majoli, we have some Fox News polls that came out that show that Kamala Harris is leading in some of the major Sun Belt states. Now, all of these leads are within the margin of error, and I'm going to say a little thing about the crosstabs that's going to maybe rain a little bit on the parade, but if you are the Kamala Harris campaign, this is definitely a move in a positive direction. So we are going to look at those polls. We're also going to look at a few other polls that I have here today and some other things that are being talked about because there were two other polls that came out, one by Big Village and one by Active Vote, which both of them I'm not hugely familiar with, but we're going to go into the crosstabs and talk about why those polls might be kind of garbage. But we are going to go into the Fox News polls later on. But before we start into that, there was some talk about, and I have it down here, about a post-DNC poll shows Donald Trump in a dead heat with Kamala Harris in Miami-Dade County. Now, a lot of you might be saying, oh, wow, that's good that it's a dead heat in Miami-Dade County if you're a Kamala Harris supporter. No, it's not, because if we look at where Miami-Dade was in the last election, remember, Biden lost Florida in the last election. You see, Biden still won Miami-Dade County 53-46. So him being in the lead in Miami-Dade, or it being tied Miami-Dade County, is actually a downward trend. Now, there was another poll that came out by a Florida Democratic Party funded organization. I don't even want to call it a polling firm. It's more of a communications organization, saying that Kamala Harris was up by 15%. No. I'm sorry, but no, that's not happening. So this isn't the best news that one should expect. And even though I mentioned the congressional district in Florida in yesterday's video, go ahead and check that out. That might actually lead to the balance of power tip to the Democrats in November. The whole state the state as a whole is not going to be going in this direction. So just want to throw that out there for people who are watching this and looking at Florida thinking that it might have some chance. Not really. All right, let's go ahead and let's first look at the Big Village poll that came out. And let's just look at some of the crazy, wacky stuff that's in here. So they have their adults, registered voters, likely voters, okay? So my guess is, since they started with adults and then went to registered voters and then went to likely voters, all of these are self-identified. My guess is they could have just gone with registered voters and not started with adults. So maybe they know that they are registered and trying to see if they're identifying correctly or not. But right off the bat, you can tell this is a crap poll by Kamala Harris only being down 0.2% nationally. And this is a national poll amongst male voters. No, she's down by a lot more than 0.2%. This demographic right here alone throws this poll out. It shows that this poll isn't even remotely worth anything whatsoever. If you look at the generations, and for some reason they do it by generations, it shows Kamala Harris leading with every generation, which again, we know isn't the case. We know that, unfortunately, I hate to say it, Gen Xers are going more for Trump. That's changing a little bit, but there's no way that she's up this much with Gen Xers. So again, these numbers just do not make sense whatsoever. Democrats, Republicans, independents, and others. Okay, so this is where I think it's weird, is that a plurality of people who identified as independent or others say that they're, and I guess this is self-identification, say that they're not going to vote, which, you know, that a lot of them won't vote or are not sure. I mean, that's a majority would not vote or not sure. Over 50%, no, that's not going to, I mean, if you go look at voter identification, or well, if you look at voter registration in places like Florida and other places, the NPAs are going to vote, they're going to have over a 50% turnout rate, okay? So this whole independent number is just garbage, okay? It's just absolute garbage. Here's another one that we have out of Michigan that is this ActiVote. Now, I've been seeing ActiVote popping up on 538. They only have 400 likely voters on there. Now, remember, in order to be put on 538's website, you only need to have a sample size of 100 voters. So this one already has a 4.9% margin of error. 100 voters to be included, that's ridiculous. But the first thing you might notice is that in this poll and in their crosstabs, the only choices you have are Kamala Harris or Donald Trump. There are no I don't know or will not vote or anything like that. Hey, at least give the Big Village one a little bit of credit. At least they put those in there. Here, nothing. It's just Kamala Harris, Donald Trump. Those are your only choices. Have a nice day. So the premise of this poll in and of itself is garbage because it doesn't give the respondent the opportunity to say that they don't know or they're not sure or they're not going to vote. It doesn't give them that opportunity. So already it's a garbage poll. As far as the regions, this is a very close number. I mean, this right here shows you it's a garbage poll. Donald Trump only winning 51-49 in rural Michigan, but yet winning in the suburbs of Michigan 60-40. Really? Really? That's what you're going to go with? That's an absolute crap poll. Yes, we do see Kamala Harris doing better with 18-29 or 18-34s, but not nearly to that extent. It's like this one, 30-49 seems okay, but come on, 50-64, 67-33. Two out of every three are going for Trump. No, that's a garbage one as well. The gender seems a little bit more spread, but it looks a little bit better. 21% of Democrats are all of a sudden voting for Donald Trump. I mean, this whole thing. Okay, and then this even bucks the trend too, that what we're seeing nationally. We're usually seeing lower income voters voting for Trump, and then the higher the income is, goes for Kamala Harris. Did they just flip these accidentally and not know what it is? And the same thing, high school educated voters, usually those with a high school education or without one are more likely to vote for Donald Trump, and those with a bachelor's degree and plus are more likely to vote for Kamala Harris. This is totally flipped. This is like an extreme garbage poll, but I wanted to mention both of these, this ActiVote, I don't even know where the hell they came from, and this other Big Village, that just, you can't just look at the numbers, the horse race numbers, and say, it shows something's happening. No, because the horse race numbers can be absolute garbage if you look at the data beneath it. And looking at the data beneath all these, the Big Village poll is a little bit bigger, or a little bit better. But, yeah. All right, so now let's not make this too long. Let's go ahead and delve into the let's delve into the Fox polls. Let's delve into the North Carolina poll. And as you can see here, we have Kamala Harris up Donald Trump up 48-47. All the distributions seem really good. Male voters, that seems right. Women voters, I think that'd be a little bit of a bigger gap, which would help Kamala Harris. Everything else, black voters, I think that's a little bit high. But if we look at black voters who voted and this is the exit poll in 2020, we see black voters are at 7% of the exit poll in 2020. So to me, this 15% is high, and you're going to see this happen throughout the poll. The age distribution is kind of weird. Under 35, Kamala Harris only winning by 2. That seems a little bit off as well. Over 65, this seems a little bit more, so on and so forth. Democrats, Republicans, let's see, independents. So it's showing Kamala Harris winning independents. Now, the one thing that I thought was weird, and this is going to be a trend in all these polls, and it's the only poll that I've seen that does this, and this is the only trend I see, is with conservatives. So if we look here, at our second row here, where we got Kamala Harris here, it shows that Kamala Harris is going to win 18% of conservative voters. Now that is a very, very high number, I think. Now, if we go look at the exit poll in 2020, we see Biden won 9%. So you're saying that Kamala, just like black voters are going to double up for Trump, you're also saying conservative voters are going to be doubling up for Kamala Harris. I just don't see that. So I'm calling bullshit on this number right here, which actually helps Donald Trump a little bit more. So maybe there's some offsetting factors here, that maybe they're giving too much of the black vote to Donald Trump and they're giving too much of the conservative vote to Kamala Harris. And which side do you want to be on in that one? I would rather be on the Trump side. So I think this looks more beneficial for Trump. If we look at the urban, rural, suburban, this all looks fine. Everything else looks fine. Yeah, so nothing out of whack for North Carolina except for that conservative vote and black vote. Now, this is going to be a trend that we're going to see throughout the throughout this video. All right, so now let's go ahead and look at Arizona. Again, we see Kamala Harris up here by 1. The male, the female distribution all looks pretty good. The age distribution, again, this looks a little bit close, but I think it's okay. Hispanic voters, Kamala Harris, like I said, 3 things: solidified youth vote, the moderate vote, Hispanic vote. These polls are showing that she's doing that as well. If we look at moderates down here, we see that we can see that she's up 49 to 42. But then again, here we go. That conservative number, we have 17% saying, identify as conservatives, saying that they are going to vote for Kamala Harris. Now, if we look at the Arizona exit poll, which I have here, and let me go down to ideology, this one seems like it could be a little bit more on the nose, because we have 11% here. So 17, yes, that's more than 11%, but it's not as far as the North Carolina poll. So I'm saying this one looks a little bit more correct. Okay, all the other distributions look fine. She's winning by 1 in the suburban areas, and if we look at those suburban areas of Arizona, going to our precinct map here, we really do have the Phoenix area. If we go into Maricopa County, we got the Phoenix area, but then we get into outside of the university area. Here we go. You get outside of the university area of Tempe and other places, and as you can see, it gets more and more Republican, and then these are just marginally Democratic areas. Scottsdale is the same way as well. Goodyear, and especially when you get out west, you start just getting a lot more Republican, and sometimes significantly so. Like, as you can see here, 58%, 61%, 56%, and so on. So with this Arizona poll, I think this looks really good. Kamala Harris up by 1. As I put in my last map, which we'll do at the end of this, the gun to my head map, I said that I thought Kamala Harris was in a position of advantage in Arizona, and I'm going to keep with that with the map I do at the end. All right, so now here we got Georgia. So again, Georgia, we have Kamala Harris up by 2, 48 to 46. I even said in the last video that I wanted to see a little bit more polling come out of Georgia, and now we do have that. The distribution amongst gender and race looks a little better. Again, black voters at 16%. That's a little bit high. If we go ahead and look at race here, well, maybe not as high. We have 11% of black voters going for Trump in 2020. So this 16% might not be bad. Okay, I'll go with that. Okay. Voters under 35, this looks a lot more like the distribution that we should expect. Age 65 and older, this to me looks a lot more like the distribution that we should accept. Democrats, Republicans, Independents. She is winning independent voters here, so that's a good sign for her. Again, and if we go down to moderate, conservative, liberal, we see in this poll that she's winning 20% of conservative voters, which would be a very, very large number. Now, let's see in the exit poll what she had for conservatives now, or Biden did. Biden had 14%. So can the 6% bounces in conservative voters be a legit bounce? They can be. And so I'm throwing a little caution to the wind with these conservative numbers being so high. But on the other hand, there is a little bit of history that shows that at least some section or some segment of the population, of the Republicans, of the conservatives, do go for the Democratic candidate. And I don't know if it has anything to do with rural Dixiecrats or whatnot. All right, and then if we look at the breakdown here, we have urban voters pretty high. We have suburban voters breaking toward Kamala Harris, which seems fine, and rural voters 36 to 60. I think these two numbers could be a little bit higher for Kamala Harris because a lot of rural voters are black voters, and the suburban area has been really trending toward the Democrats. And let me even mention that this video might be going a little bit longer, but let me go ahead and mention this because one of the problems that you have, and I'm just going to go back to this map, one of the problems that you have in places like Florida where Democrats are doing significantly worse is you have the place here where, like, let's take Tampa, for example, where a lot of this area would be blue. It's starting to contract. So what you're seeing is you're seeing the urban areas of Democrats where they used to do well in the suburbs starting to contract. Now, if you look at Atlanta, it's the total opposite. What's happening is that you had a strong urban Democratic center, and now it's expanding outside of Fulton County and others. So we're going into Gwinnett County, we're going into Cobb County, we're going into some other places where used to be Republican strongholds, like Gwinnett or Cobb County. I mean, Newt Gingrich, stuff like that, were these strongholds. Now they're turning Democratic. So this is one of the reasons why Atlanta is starting to be in play, is it's just expanding on that suburban vote. So I think that the suburban vote actually might be a little bit more Democratic right here. Same thing a little bit with the rural vote, but good news for the Harris campaign. And then finally, let's go to the Nevada numbers. We have 48, 46. Kamala Harris doing much better in this one. Again, distribution of men and women look good. Distribution of white voters looks a little bit close, but remember, the white voters in the South are going to be more conservative than the white voters in the West, so this might not necessarily be totally off. Hispanic voters, that looks about right. Under 35 looks good. 50 and older, you actually see Kamala Harris ahead in there. Again, I'm not sure. That could be the case more out west. Overall, Nevada looks really, really good in this poll for the Democrats. This looks legitimate. 47% of independents going for Donald Trump. But then again, here we go. Of moderate voters, and I haven't mentioned moderate voters as much in the others. Moderate voters, Kamala Harris is solidifying here in Nevada. Let me just go back to moderate voters in Georgia. Yeah, see, moderate voters, 56 to 31. So she's getting those moderate voters. Again, she needs to solidify those moderate voters. But then again, we have conservatives, 20%. A little bit high. Well, it seems quite a bit high for the conservatives. And this is one thing that I've noticed in all these Fox polls. You notice how that conservative number going for Kamala Harris has inflated significantly. Now, I don't know if that is a trend, if that's something that's starting to happen. Other polls, like the YouGov polls we looked at yesterday, doesn't seem to indicate that that's the case, but maybe it is starting to be the case now. I don't know. I don't really see anything that really indicates that, but I think with the amount of black vote they have going to Trump and then the conservative vote going to Kamala Harris, they have a balancing effect that makes the polls essentially right. But all the other demographics look pretty spot on what we should be looking for in a poll. So these are quite good. Okay, and finally, I have my gun to my head map where I sit there and I say, Dave, if you have to pick what state is going to go what way, what would you pick? So first of all, it's weird because I'm going to do it. I don't feel comfortable doing, but I'm going to do it. That last poll out of Nevada looks good. And as I mentioned in yesterday's poll analysis, when it comes to polls, Republicans overperform a lot in Nevada. And then what happens is the Democrat ends up squeaking it out in the end. When Sharon Angle ran against Harry Reid, that was a situation. To Laxalt Jr. in the last election and the presidential elections as well. So I'm going with Nevada to the Democratic side, though I think that could change. And also, I'm bringing Georgia around to the Democratic side. So now we're at 303 to 335. I think this looks really good. And if these numbers do hold, you have a situation where Republicans can essentially win Pennsylvania, and then boom, win Arizona, and they still win. And that is, all Democrats need to do is win these two states, win Georgia, win Nevada. But I truly do think, as of right now, the map looks like this. This is where I say it has to go based on, again, looking at the polling data, looking at electoral history and whatnot. So this is where you have to say we are. Okay, well, that's all for today. Thank you all very much for joining me. Please subscribe to the channel if you like it. Please join my Substack as well. I got it listed down below. Thank you all very much. Have a wonderful day, and I will see you with tomorrow's polls if there are any. All right? Bye-bye.